What is an airbrushing coach to do when the airbrushes that she recommends to all her students start skyrocketing in price and the value starts going down? What does she do? Start looking for new airbrushes. And you know what? I think I may have found them. I recently found Gaahleri airbrushes, and specifically, I have been really interested in the Gaahleri Mobius 3.0 and the Gaahleri Mobius 2.0. So after exploring the GHAD 39, Gaahleri reached out to me. They sent me the Mobius 0.3 and they also sent me the Mobius 0.2 because they knew that I had some very specific needs to be able to give my students the best recommendation. My name is Grace. I am an airbrush coach, but I am also an airbrush tattoo artist for film and television. And I think I may have just discovered a new airbrush. Guess what? This airbrush starts at $64. Let's go ahead and check these airbrushes out. When Gaahleri Airbrushes sent me the Mobius 0.3 and the Mobius 0.2, I was really excited to get into the boxes and do a thorough investigation of these airbrushes. See how the airbrushes work in my field, in my specific airbrushing capacity, which is airbrushing tattoos on a professional level. So when I got these, I was really excited to see the differences between the Mobius 0.3 and the Mobius 0.2. Right off the bat, I can see that there's a total difference between the airbrushes, and that 0.2 has an onboard pressure valve. Now, this is a feature that I have had in other airbrushes, but I really wanted to see how this airbrush would be able to give me more detail in my shading and my airbrush practice. So we're going to go ahead and unbox the Mobius 0.2. We'll save the 0.3 for another video. Inside the box, you're going to have the exploded breakdown view of the airbrush inside of the lid of the box, and I just think that's awesome. I said it in the GHAD 39 exploration video that I just really love having the exploded view of the airbrush inside of the box right where you can see it, and I'm really happy that my students are going to be able to have that at their fingertips when they open the box. Also inside you get a rapid start pamphlet, and that helps you with some tips and tricks on what to do and what not to do when using and assembling the airbrush. We are going to be breaking down this airbrush and adding the lubrication so that we can get it set up and get it started. Now, it does come pretty much set up right out of the box, but I'm going to be doing this little lubrication practice just to show my students, the airbrush unicorns, that this is how you want to maintain your airbrush. So inside of the box, you get an extra set of O-rings, which is super helpful and a real value that I don't see included from other airbrush companies. So you can also see that the lubrication is included and the airbrush comes with the bowl unattached. Now, one of the main differences between this airbrush, the Mobius 0.2 and the Mobius 0.3, is that this has an onboard pressure valve. It also has a smaller cup or bowl, whatever you choose to call that. But the smaller bowl is very useful for what we do when it comes to shading, because A lot of times when we are shading, we don't need that much ink in the bowl. So it's better to have a smaller bowl for the details that we want to get with 0.2. The difference between the two is that the bowl of the 0.3 is larger, as you can see, more capacity for solution, ink, paint, whatever you may be using. In our case, it's Airbrush Tattoo ink, and then specifically, we're going to be using Vitruvian shader in the Mobius 0.2, and in the Mobius 0.3, we will be using Sailor Blue Black. So the beauty is that we have a bigger bowl which can hold more ink, but it doesn't have really the need for a onboard pressure valve because we can also use the pressure valve on the Grex quick disconnect, which is one of the required items in the kit for Airbrush unicorns. As I take the airbrush out of the box, I'm really struck by the quality and beauty of this airbrush. It's really exciting to see an airbrush company spend so much time and effort to create an airbrush that is not only just better as a piece of equipment, but also aesthetically pleasing. We're going to begin the breakdown of the airbrush from the handle. From the very beginning, you can tell the quality in the machining of these parts. Now we're going to go ahead and take out the needle. Be careful with that. Next is the needle chucking nut. We'll take that off and set that aside. I like to put it on the foam insert that comes with the airbrush so that they don't get lost. The next part we'll remove is the main lever adjustment knob. Another thing that I like about Gaahleri is that you don't need tools to remove most of the things. This particular part, you don't need tools to remove it. You can do it with your fingers. But with the next part, which is going to be the spring case, you do need a tool, and I recommend that you use something that is for more delicate. I'm going to be using my art wire pliers. You could probably also use jewelry pliers. So there goes the spring, and now we will be going in and gently removing the spring case. Main lever that came out because we took the needle out. But see, these are wire pliers that are a little bit more delicate, so I don't damage my metal in the spring case, even though it's not really showing. I'm just very particular about not marring the metal, and it looks great. I didn't mess it up. So when you remove the spring case and you get to the needle chucking guide, you're going to notice that that's going to want to spin in there when you are trying to unscrew the spring case. So what I did was I just held it with my finger while I unscrewed the spring case to get to the needle chucking guide, which is what I'm taking out right now. Setting it aside. Now we've got the body of the airbrush. Just a beautiful work of art. This airbrush is like giving me heart palpitations right now. Amazing. Okay, so now we're going to be taking off the nozzle and the nozzle cap. So the nozzle and the nozzle cap, this is some innovative technology right here. I'm not sure I've ever seen a better innovation when it comes to the tip of an airbrush. Now that is a very precise equation, and for them to be able to re-engineer how this works in an airbrush is a feat, and I'm really impressed. So this is where your extra O-rings are going to be going. If you ever need to have a new O-ring, you lose it or whatever, you're just going to be able to just reach into the box and replace it. Again, that's a real value, because with other airbrush brands, they're going to charge you like $7 for an O-ring, which is ridiculous. If you do need to do that, I suggest that you use tweezers so you don't damage the O-ring. So I'm reinserting the nozzle into the nozzle tip, and notice I'm able to put it back on the body of the airbrush without any tools. It's like it floats in there, and it's just so much like butter, so smooth. And I just love that you don't have to use tools to get that on, because I really don't like marring the finish on my airbrushes. So now I'm looking at the lubrication instructions, and I'm looking at where they suggest to put the lubrication. So we'll just go ahead and start that process. These are the places. So you want to put the lube on the needle chucking guide, and you want to put some on the needle. So we're going to go ahead and do that right now. Like I said before, the airbrush seems to come all ready to go out of the box, that's really awesome. But I do want to make sure that my students, the airbrush unicorns, and anybody else just knows the importance of keeping this tool looped up so that it can work at its best capacity. It's a precision tool, and we use alcohol in our process. So we just want to make sure that we keep the airbrush lubricated and maintained. So as I do this, I notice that there is some lubrication on the bottom of the lever, and from my experience with the 0.3, it is a good idea to place lubrication on the bottom of the trigger. I didn't do it this time because it was already on there, but it is something that you want to maintain. Going back in with the spring, we're putting back in the spring case, and I'm using my pliers to gently tighten it back up. Nice. And now we're putting in the main lever adjustment knob. You want to make sure that your lever, or trigger as you could probably call it, but I prefer to call it the lever, that needs to be properly placed on the air valve bulb inside. I believe that part is called the value rod. So that needs to be sitting on top of there so that the needle chucking guide is in the right direction. It should be directly behind the lever. I'm putting a little lube on the needle. All right, the needle goes in. And now we are going to be putting the needle chucking nut back on there. So this is just such smooth action. I love it. It's just, wow. So there goes the needle chucking nut, and we've tightened everything up. Everything seems to be looking and feeling very responsive and ready to go. I love the Mobius strip and the handle. It's just so beautiful. It's just really breathtaking. And I really have to give it to Gaahleri airbrushes for taking it to the next level as far as having the engineering be there, but the aesthetics of this airbrush, it's perfect for me because I'm in makeup artistry, and looks really do matter. So I am really happy with this airbrush, and I will be giving it 5 stars and definitely recommending it to my students, the airbrush unicorns, and also anyone else who is airbrushing in airbrushing makeup, or even airbrushing for crafts, or even other applications. that are fine art applications, I can totally recommend this airbrush. I also really love the fact that it comes with a quick disconnect adapter, which is something that the Pache Talon did not come with. And there was also an extra adapter that I had to show my students how to use. And that was just really wasn't great. I have 100% fallen in love with the Gaahleri Mobius series. And also I really do love the GHAD as well. And I will be putting up a lot more videos about these airbrushes and about how I utilize them in my job and also my students, the Airbrush Unicorns. If you're interested in learning more about my coaching program, just click the links that you see in the description below to find out more. And if you're interested in learning more or even just going out and trying the Gaahleri Mobius 0.2 or the Gaahleri Mobius 0.3, I totally recommend it, and I hope that you can tell them that Grace sent you by using my link in the description. Have a great time with this airbrush, and I am really looking forward to the next video where I can show you what I can do with this amazing new airbrush. See you in the next video.